Sometimes on this journey I get lost in my mistakes. What looks to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. My story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. No, failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Arrival's not the end game, the journey's where you are. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. No, failure's never final when the Father's in the room. It ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors fling wide, the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Oh, Jericho walls are quaking, strongholds now are shaking. No, love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, in the Father's house. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You've been so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life for me. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, He chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. But I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You've been so good to me. I felt nowhere, you paid it all for me. You've been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, He chases me down, fights till I'm found. He's the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And how could it hurt it? I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Well, good morning. My name is Dean Ward, and I'm the lead pastor of the River Church in New Kensington. And today, Mark Helzel and I are filming together. Now, Mark is the campus pastor of the River Franklin Park over in Franklin Park. And we are filming today, the two of us together, because my cameraman is away this week. And so the two of us are trying to figure it out on our own. And you know what they say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. So we've been having a lot of fun, and I'm grateful that you have chosen to join in with us here this morning. Now, you may notice that I'm wearing my Ben Roethlisberger jersey, and you may say, well, he retired so long ago. Why are you wearing that jersey? Well, I wore it last Sunday morning, and you watched what the Steelers did to Tampa Bay, so I'm going to ride this one until it doesn't work anymore. We are filming today on the magnificent campus of the University of Pittsburgh. And the University of Pittsburgh was founded in 1787, hundreds of years ago. And we're filming today in front of one of the most iconic landmarks of any university. It's the Cathedral of Learning. Now, the Cathedral of Learning is a tall tower. And my favorite memory of the Cathedral of Learning is that iconic photograph that was included in Time magazine back in October of 1960, whenever the Pittsburgh Pirates were playing the New York Yankees in the 1960 World Series, when Bill Mazeroski hit the game-winning home run in the bottom of the 9th inning to beat the New York Yankees. And you say, well, Dean, that's really retro. You're going really far back. Well, to be honest, as a Pittsburgh Pirate fan, you have to go really far back if you're going to celebrate a World Series win. This tower behind me, the Cathedral of Learning, you may not know this, but it's the second tallest educational tower in the world. The tallest one is over in Russia somewhere, and I'm not going over to see it, so we decided to film here instead. But today we are going retro. We're going back to the title of a series of messages that we preached 6 years ago. Now, in Pastor's Talk, 6 years is 6 years ago. And we preached this series of messages and loved the theme, loved the title, so we decided to go 2.0. So we're starting today with a series just simply called Stuff Jesus Made Up 2.0. We're looking at epic stories from the Master. We're looking at the parables that Jesus taught. Now, as we talk about parables, it's important to understand the teaching technique Jesus used called parables, because we don't hear that word very often outside of Scripture, and I want to help us better understand this. Parables, they are often prophetic instruments that enlighten and instruct, but often they communicate a message that the listeners really don't want to hear. And they have a fascinating effect. Jesus would tell a parable, and then you could kind of imagine, like hours later, the listeners struggling with it, and then all of a sudden, boom, a light bulb goes off in their head, and they're like, wait, he's talking about me. And then the parable would have a whole new meaning. Parables are tools of the wisdom teachers and require imagination to unlock their meaning. So we're going to ask you to engage in these parables, to listen, and to help us as we unlock the meanings of these parables. Jesus is in a role of the prophet whenever he teaches in parables. And like Old Testament prophets, through parables, he would often pronounce judgment and deliverance. There's this great phrase in Scripture that says, without a story, he did not teach them. And I love the way that Jesus would implement parable and stories to teach. And the disciples, they too would often be head scratching after listening to the parables. They'd be like, well, I didn't quite get it. So they often pull Jesus aside and say, hey, can you help us understand? We're not the sharpest tools in the tool bag here. Can you help us we're just fishermen. Like, can you help us understand the meaning of what you just taught? And Jesus would often oblige. In this series, I want to bring light to the power of story. I want us to see that these stories speak to our story. And I want to invite you to see yourself in these stories. See yourself in these parables. We can all find ourselves in these stories. Now, Jesus teaches in parables because you have to engage. You have to actively listen. You have to put effort in to get it. And once you are in it, you realize it takes even more effort to live the teaching that Jesus is giving us. Parables require that we become kind of a treasure hunter, seeking those treasures, those truths in God's Word that we'll often miss. When I used to have my business scuba diving for golf balls at golf courses, I would go down and I'd be in the bottom of the lake and I would find a gravel vein, and there were golf balls that would sink down in the gravel, and I would just unearth them and find hundreds of golf balls embedded in the gravel. And Jesus teaching in parables, if we actively listen and choose to engage, there are treasures to be discovered in these parables. Searching for all the treasure in the story, it takes work. Deciphering, thinking, having discernment, listening humbly, saying, God, what do you want me to learn in this? And having some common sense. Well, today we're going to start this series for the next 6 weeks. And today's sermon is just simply a story about ambition. So this story about ambition that we're going to be looking at is found in Luke chapter 14, verses 25 through 33. And Jesus is presenting to them kind of the cost of being a disciple. He's letting them know how much it will cost them. And he begins by telling them 2 stories of ambition. Verse 25 begins, large crowds were traveling with Jesus. Now I just want to pause there because Luke is introducing us to the idea that there were hundreds and thousands of people following Jesus. Very large crowds. According to the disciples, it probably looked like everything was going up and to the right. Growth, growth, growth. Jesus was reaching thousands of people with his message. Things were looking good. And it's interesting how everybody loves the show, but few love the sacrifice. And Jesus is about to introduce everyone who's following just for the show about the sacrifice they will experience in following him. Luke intentionally lets us see how many people are following him, but Jesus turns it backwards. We would say, what would we need to do to get the most followers, the most attention, the biggest impact? But Jesus flips it backwards, indicating that, hey, less is more. This is not the way we would do it today. Jesus' kingdom is the upside down kingdom. Well, this is Jesus' upside down pitch, kind of his elevator pitch, his 30-second opportunity to tell everybody what he is all about. And he flips it upside down. His elevator pitch sounds unattractive. Basically, he's saying, hey, come and die. Hate your family. Carry your cross. I can imagine his disciples saying, Jesus, this is the last thing we want to be telling our followers. What are you doing? Well, let's see what Jesus said. It says, and turning to them, he said, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Now, Jesus, if he was in a Dale Carnegie class on how to win friends and influence people, he would get an F grade immediately with that approach. But he continues, and whoever does not carry their cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. There are a lot of people with a lot of ambition. There were a lot of people following Jesus, and Jesus wanted them to know what was truly involved to be his disciple. He's about to tell a story of a tower. Now, towers are fascinating. This tower at the Cathedral of Learning is very tall, and we did a little work on kind of what the tallest structures are. And I thought it might be the Sears Tower in Chicago. Well, that's hardly even on the list anymore. The building that's the tallest in the world is the Merdeka 118 Tower in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. It's 2,227 feet tall. It's tall. The Burj Khalifa like Wiz Khalifa, in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, is 2,717 feet tall, a mere 10 feet shorter than the one built in Malaysia. So in the US, for decades, it was the Sears Tower in Chicago. Not any longer. One World Trade Center is 1,776 feet tall. In Pennsylvania, you think we have it here in Pittsburgh? No. In Philadelphia, the Comcast Technology Center is 1,121 feet tall. In Pittsburgh, the USX Tower, that's our big building, it's only 841 feet tall. And the Cathedral of Learning behind us, you want to take a guess on how tall it is? 535 feet tall. You could almost take 6 of these to reach the height of the highest tower in the world. Now, say, Dean, why are you giving all this useless, silly information about towers? Well, because Jesus is about to tell a story about somebody who didn't give enough thought in relationship to a tower. His parable begins in verse 28. Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees you will ridicule you, saying this person began to build and wasn't able to finish. You see, ambition alone can end up making you look like a fool if you don't do the hard work of counting the cost, if you don't do the hard work of figuring out what your ambition is going to require of you. Jesus continues with another story in verse 31. Or suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Won't he first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him, or with 20,000? If he is not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off, and will ask for terms of peace. In the same way, those of you who do not give up everything you have cannot be my disciple. Boom. There it is. Jesus saying, hey, if you're not willing to give up everything you own, you cannot be my disciple. Is Jesus worth it? That's the question we're exploring today. I want to pause and give you an opportunity to engage with this video, simply called Jesus is Better.
"13 letters, 3 words, 1 sentence, and I hope you never forget it. I hope you always remember these 13 letters, these 3 words, and this one complete sentence. Jesus is better. He's better than any passing dream you might be chasing after. He's better than any worldly ambition that may have captured your devotion. He's better than anything that could distract you from doing what you were created to do. He's better than money, cars, clothes, entertainment, achievement, and popularity. He's better than anything this world can offer you. Jesus is better. He's better than any person that has ever walked this earth. He's wiser than Gandhi and smarter than Einstein. He's more eloquent than Shakespeare and more creative than Mozart. He's more powerful than Napoleon and more compassionate than Mother Teresa. There's never been anyone like him, nor will there ever be. Not even close. Jesus is better. The Bible says he's better than Adam, better than Abraham, better than Moses, David, and Mary. He's better than the angels, better than the demons, better than any prophet, priest, or saint. From beginning to end, this book has one beautiful story and one unified theme. The Bible is clear. Jesus is better. But there will be times when it's hard to believe. Times when it doesn't feel like Jesus is better. The world will reject you, your flesh will fight you, and the devil will lie to you. Storms will come. You're going to face disappointment, deception, betrayal, and rejection. You're going to feel tired, empty, brokenhearted, scared, and alone. But don't forget in the darkness what you learned in the light. Jesus is better. He's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's the Prince of Peace and the light of the world. He's the friend of sinners and the enemy of Satan. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. He is the way and the truth and the life. Jesus is better. And if you really truly believe it, it's going to cost you. You're going to help the poor, defend the powerless, swallow your pride, and love your enemies. You're going to study the scriptures when you'd rather scroll your phone. You're going to pray when you'd rather sleep. You're going to serve when you'd rather be served. And you're going to speak up when you'd rather be silent. But when it's all said and done, you won't regret it. You'll say, it was worth it. Jesus is better. I consider everything a loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them rubbish, that I may gain Christ. In other words, Jesus is better. 13 letters, 3 words, 1 sentence, and no question about it. Jesus is better.
I love that video. Jesus is better. Did you get that? Jesus is better. And that's really at the bottom of what we're talking about today. That's the question. And is he worth it? Is Jesus worth it? See, there is a cost, as Dean talked about, to following Christ. There is a cost. There's no way around it. In fact, we need to count the cost. And here's the good news. In this, Jesus never bait and switches us. Jesus tells us from the very beginning that there is a cost. There is no bait and switch. There is no menu without the prices on it. He just says, this is what it's going to cost. This is what it is. Do you want to come along? But make no mistake, there is a cost for following Christ. Did you notice that in these 2 parables that Dean read, that the cost gets higher? He tells us in the first parable about a tower, which was probably an agricultural tower built in the middle of the field so that the farmer could store his stuff in, or he could have lookouts who looked over his crops to make sure that nobody stole his stuff, or he kept an eye on his workers. And that was a very, very important tower. And if it was half finished and he never finished it because he didn't count the cost, then what was at stake was his reputation. And that's a big thing. Your reputation is a big thing. But Jesus ramped it up in the second parable, and he said, well, this is a king who's over 10,000 troops. And if that king doesn't count the cost, not only could 10,000 people lose their lives, but the king could lose his, and the king could end up losing his kingdom. And so Jesus ramps it up in each parable. It gets a little more important because he's telling us, please, before you make a decision to come with me, count the cost. It might cost you your reputation with certain people. It might cost you your very life. So have you asked yourself, have you counted the cost? Because a lot of people don't. Because, you know, I grew up in churches where all you had to do was raise your hand and accept Christ, and you were a Christian. And there's a place for that. But so many never counted the cost. They were caught up in maybe some sudden emotions or some shallow enthusiasm. And over the years of ministry, I've seen that fade in many people, because once things got tough and they hadn't counted the cost, they just kind of faded away. So have you counted the cost? When you step into this relationship with Jesus and what he's calling you to. I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who's one of my heroes, he said it this way. He said, when Christ calls a man, he bids him to come and to die. And that's really what Jesus is calling us to. He said it even before he told the parables. He said, hey, you have to hate your mother and father, your very family. Now, he's not telling us to hate them. In fact, the Greek word there literally means to love lesser than. And so he's saying, even the most important relationships in your life, do you love them less than me? Are you willing to pick up your cross? And anybody who heard that when he said those words, they had the picture in their mind of a brutal, horrific, slow death. And Jesus said, at times it's going to feel like that. It's going to feel like losing yourself. It's going to feel like your life is ending, but I'm really bringing you new life. And is he worth it? Is Jesus worth it? Well, you know, that question gets asked in real time too, with real people. These parables are made up stories, but in Luke chapter 18, just a few chapters later, we find this actually play itself out. In Luke chapter 18, verse 18, it says this: a certain ruler asked him, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And by the way, eternal life is, yes, the life to come, but it's also life now. And so he's asking the question, where is life? How do I get life in all of its forms? And Jesus, I love his response. He says, "Why do you call me good?" Jesus answered, "No one is good except God alone." It's a little bit of a snarky answer, I think. He says, "You know the commandments. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. You shall not give false testimony. Honor your father and mother. All these," the guy replies, "I have kept since I was a boy." I don't know. I feel a little bit of youthful arrogance there, because if you're anything like this 53-year-old, you know you've broken a fair amount of these. Or if you broke one, you broke them all, as Jesus says. But, you know, he gives a great answer, and he's probably a good dude. He's a good dude, probably a religious dude. He says, "All these I've kept since I was a boy," he said. And when Jesus heard this, he said to him, "You still lack one thing. Sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." See, Jesus was giving him the cost right up front. Now, Jesus does not tell everybody to sell everything they have and follow him, but for this man, it was the one thing that held him back. And so he said, here's the cost for you. This is what it's going to cost you. Sell everything you have and give it to the poor. If I am better, then come and follow me, because you will experience in me more than you can ever experience in all of your stuff. And verse 23 is kind of a haunting verse for all of us. It says, when he heard this, he became very sad because he was very wealthy. See the cost? Luke gives us right here, the cost was just too much. The cost was too much. And Jesus, I think, sensing the sadness in his heart and in his face, looked at him and said, how hard is it for the rich to enter the kingdom of God? Or how hard is it if someone won't give up this thing to enter the kingdom of God? Indeed, Jesus said, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. See, once again, we're reminded of what Dean said in the first part of this. He said, everybody loves a show. This man probably came to Jesus because of the show. Maybe he saw people fed. He saw paralyzed people walk. He saw miracles and he said, I want this, I want it. So everyone loves the show, but few embrace the sacrifice. And so Jesus says, are you willing to go beyond the show? Are you willing to go to the sacrifice, to the cost? Because that's where true followers go. And see, we know this. We know this in every area of our life. Like we think for some reason that there's no cost of following Christ, or we shouldn't be called to such a high level. But let me ask you this. If you played sports, or your kids play sports, and you had a coach who sat you down for the big pep talk before the game, and that coach just said to you, hey guys, let's go out there today and let's just give 20%. Let's give 20%. Let's really tear it up. Let's give 20%. Well, that would be not a winning team. And I guarantee you, if your kids played on that team, you would not want them to be your coach. But yet when Jesus calls to us and says, hey, I want you to give it all. I want you to give 100%. We balk at it and be like, wait. And I think that's what gets to our hearts, where we haven't wrestled the question yet, is he better? Is Jesus better? Now, the disciples also wrestled with this, because when they see this man walk away, this guy that was so gung-ho walk away, and such a high cost was given, Peter, of course, speaks first and said to him, hey, we've left everything to follow you. And Jesus says, well, truly I tell you, no one who has left home or wife or brothers or sisters or parents or children for the sake of the kingdom of God will fail to receive many times as much in this age and in the age to come, eternal life. See, Jesus does tell us the cost, but he also tells us the reward. And he says, this is the reward for laying your life in my hands. See, there's a time when many people would leave him. We started this passage with popularity, but it's not really ending that way, because there would be a time when almost everyone would leave. And Jesus would turn to his disciples in that moment and say, hey, look, if they hated me, they're going to hate you. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. And everybody was leaving, and he said, do you want to leave too? And those great words were spoken that Peter spoke. He said, where would we go? You have the words of eternal life. You're worth it. You're worth it, Jesus. In you is life. And so whatever I have to lay down, you are worth it. See, Peter could have went back to fishing, and some of the other disciples, or Matthew, could have went back to being a tax collector. He probably did pretty well. But those things they knew were not satisfying. Those things were not what would bring them life. And they did not want to ever go back. So I guess today I want to leave you with this. Is Jesus worth it? Is Jesus really worth it? Well, I can tell you this, that in my own life, my resounding answer would be yes. Oh, yes, he is. And millions of people in the last 2,000 years have answered the same way. He was worth it. He was more than worth it. So Franklin Park, New Ken, do you know that he's worth it? Do you know that he is the one who is everything? That he gave everything and he is everything. That's my prayer for you. That's my prayer for myself, is that I would live in those truths, that I would count the cost. And when things get hard, when the cost gets high, that I would realize he's worth it over and over again. Amen and amen. You guys have a great day. Thank you for watching, and we'd love to see you in person or online throughout these weeks and months to come. Take care.